The next chapter is gas and electricity, some of the legal requirements associated with it. Again, this is a legal chapter basically, and some of the things that you need to be cognizant of as a manufacturer or a dealer distributor or an end user operator out there with respect to gas and electrical, some of the legal requirements associated with it. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about gas. Gas safety in the catering industry is governed by the gas safety laws, which was a regulation put into place in 1998, the GSI-UR, all right, and that is the overriding gas agency, or regulation, I should say, regulating gas within the gas safety within the food service industry. Any work done on or with gas appliances subject to the rules of this particular act that went into place in 1998, and any initial requirement is that, or the initial requirement is that all equipment must be CE marked. So first and foremost, everything has to be CE marked before it falls under this particular regulation, and I think that's pretty standard in the industry. With respect to gas safety, specifically with the installation and repair work, everyone who is engaged with this type of work must be deemed competent. In other words, they must be gas safe registered with the valid certificates of competency, and that has to be registered with the, again, with the GSI-UR, the regulations and government agency. As an operator, make sure that your gas equipment has been installed or is current, and also has the relevant certification with respect to gas safety. So that's very, very important. As an end user operator, make sure anyone who's coming in to work on your gas appliance falls under the rules and regulations with respect to gas safety registration. That's one thing you need to keep in mind. Some other things, regulation of GSI-UR requires employees and the self-employed to ensure that gas appliances, flues, gas pipework, and gas safety devices are properly maintained and in safe working condition at all times. Okay, you can't let it slip out of proper working conditions. Gas inspection and maintenance must be carried out by a gas safe registered engineer. So if you're an end user operator, it's cognizant upon you to make sure that anyone who's coming in to work on your gas piece of equipment is certified or is registered as a gas safe technician or an engineer for your particular facility. Other things should be done annually. Gas safety, any piece of gas equipment that you have in your food service facility should be done on an annual basis at an absolute minimum. Any recommendations that the gas equipment manufacturer has also should be taken into consideration. And any landlord of a food service facility must have all appliances and all flues checked at least every 12 months by a gas safe registered engineer, and provide the tenants within that particular facility with a registration form or with a certificate, I should say, of the compliance with respect to the actual laws and rules and regulations. Come on, go forward here. There we go. All catering and hospitality staff that use gas equipment need to be trained in how to properly use it and how to carry out regular inspections on those particular pieces of equipment. And that should be, to a certain degree, incumbent upon not only the equipment manufacturers, but also the dealers, the food service equipment dealers and distributors that exist out there as part of your value-added services. Sit down with the food service operators and help them train their employees on the do's and don'ts and how to inspect your gas pieces of equipment to make sure that they are running properly or operating properly. Routine tasks such as connecting and disconnecting, plugging gas lines can be carried out, can be done by employees, but those employees do not necessarily have to be gas safe registered. So if you're just doing simple, not maintenance, but simple cleaning behind a gas appliance that has a quick disconnect, a regular employee or an employee of your facility can disconnect it and move it and reconnect it again by putting it back in. They do not have to be gas safe registered. Other things you need to do: properly functioning ventilation systems will help ensure a clean and safe kitchen. And also DW172 standard. And I understand from several of you that some of the standards on DW172 with respect to hood and ventilation and canopy systems are changing literally as we are sitting here and standing here in this room. So this needs to be updated at some particular point, but a good ventilation system will help it or make it easier to, for owners and catering and gas engineers to make sure that things are properly ventilated so that you don't have a buildup of gas within your food service facility, which obviously can be very, very dangerous. Sources of, some other things to take a look at with gas systems and ventilation systems, that the source of fires in ductwork above a gas appliance are often caused by built-up grease that accumulates in the filters themselves or in the exhaust vents, and they get ignited and can cause some very, very major fires within a food service facility. A few years ago, you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but one of the restaurants at Heathrow caught on fire, and it was caused by grease built up in the ventilation systems because it wasn't properly managed, I guess, or wasn't properly maintained, and that caused the airport to be closed down for hours, which cost the airport authority literally millions of dollars within a really short period of time, because it wasn't, the gas lines and the gas extraction exhaust was not properly maintained or taken care of. And also use approved grease filters to prevent this type of thing from happening. And any good food service operator will have multiple sets of grease filters, because as one set is being cleaned, you replace it with another set of already cleaned grease filters. So in summary, what are some of the do's and don'ts with respect to gas safety within a food service operation? Some of the do's: gas equipment is installed and should be maintained by a gas-safe registered engineer. That's probably the most important thing in this part of this particular chapter, is that you have to have qualified, licensed, gas-safe registered engineers. Some other things, the do's: ensure that all the aforementioned engineers are fully qualified and their qualifications are up to date. And you as a manufacturer, you as a dealer, distributor, and you as an end user, is cognizant upon you to make sure that they are up to date by asking the right questions, ask to see their license, and so on and so forth. Check to make sure that engineers are competent to undertake the desired work. Just because somebody might be less expensive to do this gas work doesn't necessarily mean you should be employing them. Again, the most important factor here is that anyone working on gas equipment, that they are gas-safe registered and that they are qualified and totally certified on a regular basis. Maintain your equipment, have it inspected and serviced and repaired according to the manufacturer's specifications, and that means at least having it inspected at least on a once every 12-month basis, quite often sooner than that as well, if you want to stay ahead of the game. And read and understand the codes of practice for gas safety. Again, it makes sense. Take the extra bit of time to do it, and I can guarantee you significantly increase the overall safety factor of using gas in your facility. Some of the don'ts: attempt to fix or move gas appliances yourself, especially the fix component of it. Leave it up to a registered engineer. The professionals know what they're doing. Don't attempt to remove gas appliances yourself. Again, bring the engineer in. It's all about safety here, and don't cover air vents and flues that are essential for your gas appliance to work properly. Again, by doing so, you could significantly alter the effectiveness and the efficiency of the hood canopies ventilation systems within your food service operation. Alrighty, electrical safety. Most electrical accidents basically occur because people are on or working on or near electrical equipment that is thought to be dead, but which is really alive. All right, there's still electricity flowing to it. Most accidents occur because known to be alive, but those involved do not have adequate training or appropriate equipment to prevent injury, or they have not taken adequate precautions. So yes, some pieces of equipment can be still left live, but if you don't know what you're doing as an operator, you can significantly increase your chances of getting electrocuted or causing some sort of injury, to yourself, because you don't know what you're doing, you don't have the proper tools, you don't have the proper equipment to deal with it. So those typical hazards: again, contact with live parts with an electrical piece of equipment, faults that could cause a fire within your facility. And just recently in this country we saw what happened to that a huge apartment building that went up in flames because of faulty electrical component within a freezer refrigerator. And fire or explosion where electricity could be the source of the actual ignition itself. Alrighty, so those are some of the typical hazards. Some of the typical injuries that can occur: electrical shock from contact with a live part or live wire itself, electrical burns with contact with a live part or a live wire, which is very, very common. I want to say not super common, but it is one of the more common injuries associated with it. Loss of muscle control, which could be caused by some sort of electrical shock, and thermal burns as well. So those are some of the typical injuries that are associated with electrical safety or typical injuries found in the industry. Some of the various risks associated with electrical safety: wet surroundings. It's an absolute magnet, as you well know from probably some of your own personal experiences. Wet floor is an absolute magnet for some sort of electrical problem or electrical injury taking place. Whether another one is cramped spaces resulting in electrical cords that are dangling down. How many of you have gone into restaurants or even your own home, for crying out loud, where you have so many electrical cords that are hanging down from an outlet that it's absolutely, first of all, mentally confusing to figure out where one where one cord goes to versus another already. And imagine what it's like in a lot of food service operations. I'm sure you've seen it, where cords are just dangling all over the darn place. One of the worst cases I ever saw was in India. In several restaurants that I went to in India, it was just absolutely, of course over in India they steal electricity from the power lines. They literally just throw a wire over top of a live power line and they just have it coming into the restaurant or their home or whatever. But I remember on a couple of different occasions walking into this restaurant and seeing these wires just going everywhere throughout the entire food service facility. Not only in the front of the house, but more significantly in the kitchen. And you know, it was just an absolute magnet for a disaster to occur in the food service facility. Not only was somebody getting electrocuted or getting an electrical shock, but wires crossing each other, causing a short and starting a fire and things of that nature. So that is one of the things that you want to avoid. Some other various risks: a damaged plug or connector. Don't jury rig it, I should say, and use tape or some other device to fix a damaged plug or connector. Just eliminate it, go out and get a new one, and that's, again, you'd significantly increase the safety factor. Electrical cable that has been repaired with tape, again, I just mentioned that. Make sure you get rid of that. Tape is not going to last. It's not an effective way of preventing an electrical problem within your facility. Or overheating of the wires resulting in burns and marks or stains on a table or on the floor or whatever it is in a particular piece of equipment. So those are some of the various risks that you need to be cognizant of. Some of the points that you need to remember with respect to electrical safety in a food service facility. Make sure that your employees know how to properly use the equipment. Again, that comes to a value-added service that you could provide as a dealer, distributor, or manufacturer to the end user operator, is to show them how to properly use a particular piece of equipment and what are some of the dangers associated with using a particular piece of equipment. Make sure that there's enough electrical outlets and sockets available to you. In other words, don't use a lot of extension cords, or don't use those devices that you can put 5 different plugs in, or 5 different cords into one outlet. Very, very dangerous. Make sure that there are no trailing cables that can be tripped over, like this particular cable up here. That's why I'm not walking this way, because there's an electrical cable that exists up here that I could trip over. And again, I'm sure some of you have seen it within food service facilities, and it is definitely a major hazard. Other things, some other key points to remember: switch to the off position and unplug any appliances before cleaning or adjusting those particular pieces of equipment. Stop using any piece of equipment immediately if it appears to be faulty. Again, I'm sure you've seen it, but I've seen people, you probably do it at home with a particular piece of electrical equipment. If it's not working, you take a hammer out and you bang it on it and say, geez, this hammer is the great piece of equipment to fix this particular piece of equipment. Or you juggle the cord, do you not? You'll sometimes plug something in to an outlet, and if it's not working properly, you juggle it around and try to make it work. I've done that numerous times myself. And it's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous to do that. I've gotten shocked once that way, I still haven't learned. I still do it, for crying out loud, because that's, you know, it's the simplest and easiest thing to do, but it's stupid and it's very, very dangerous to do that. So make sure that if something even appears to be faulty, that you get it fixed, or don't try to jury rig it yourself or try to fix it without totally unplugging it. Consider using a residual current device or an RCD between the electrical supply and the actual equipment itself, especially when working out of doors or within a wet, confined place such as a kitchen. Exactly. It's very confining, it's very, very wet, so you should use an RCD device as much as you absolutely possibly can in that type of an environment to eliminate it as much as possible.